Let us set the stage with where we currently stand in this incredibly messy narrative. Britt is currently sitting in a cold, unforgiving jail cell, facing an absolute mountain of terrifying legal charges. We are talking about potential complicity in a massive international conspiracy, illegal evasion, and perhaps most devastatingly of all, the heavy accusation of kidnapping Rocco. Dante and Lulu were the ones who finally tracked them down to their hideout in Tortola, bringing Britt in and dragging a furiously resistant Rocco back home. On paper, it looks like a clean textbook victory for the good guys. The fugitive is caught, the child is safe, and justice is supposedly being served. But if you look just a few inches beneath the surface, this entire situation is a ticking time bomb of emotional warfare waiting to detonate. The reality of Britt's legal nightmare is actually much more fragile than the police or the prosecutors want to admit. Yes, the charges are severe, but I strongly believe Britt is largely a victim here, forced into this terrifying nightmare by circumstances entirely beyond her control. She was dragged into this mess because of her proximity to the chaos, not because she is a criminal mastermind. But the kidnapping charge, that is where the story gets incredibly complicated and fascinating. Rocco is not a helpless toddler who was snatched from his bed. He is a fiercely loyal young man who willingly went on the run to protect the people he cares about. What exactly happens when Rocco inevitably takes the witness stand or speaks privately to a judge? Think back to that incredibly tense, heartbreaking standoff in Tortola. This is where it gets interesting. Rocco flat out refused to leave the island with Dante and Lulu unless Britt came with them. He was entirely willing to sacrifice his own safety, his own comfort, and his own return to a normal life, just to ensure Britt was not left behind to face the wolves alone. If Rocco testifies under oath that Britt never once held him against his will, that she actually tried to protect him at every turn, that kidnapping charge is going to evaporate into thin air. A good defense attorney will absolutely shred the prosecution's narrative using Rocco's own unwavering devotion to her. Dante, of course, is not going to take that lying down. If you ask me, Dante operates on a very rigid, black and white moral compass when it comes to protecting his family. He genuinely believes that having Britt arrested was the absolute only way to keep her and Rocco safe from being targeted by international mercenaries. He is a cop through and through, and when he sees a threat to his household, he puts on the badge and goes to war. He will interview every witness, scour every document, and pressure every contact he has to build an airtight case. As Britt's legal defenses potentially strengthen, Dante will inevitably double down on his crusade. I can easily see him relentlessly digging through every single piece of evidence, trying to stack new, unrelated charges against Britt just to ensure she stays securely behind bars. For Dante, the law is his ultimate weapon of choice to build an impenetrable fortress around his son. But this is the exact moment where the story shifts from a legal drama into a psychological thriller. While Dante trusts the badge and the legal system to do the heavy lifting, Lulu is operating on pure, unadulterated maternal panic. Lulu is forced to watch her own son look at another woman with the kind of fierce, protective love that a child usually reserves exclusively for their biological mother. Rocco's absolute, unyielding fury toward Dante and Lulu over Britt's arrest is a massive, flashing red flag. Lulu is not just fighting to keep her son out of physical danger anymore. She is fighting a desperate psychological war for his heart. And in that kind of emotional war, the legal system is completely useless. We urgently need to talk about the poisoned vials. This is the smoking gun of this entire storyline, the ultimate Chekhov's gun, and it is a detail that I absolutely refuse to believe the writers will just brush under the rug. We know that Ross orchestrated a deeply sinister, calculated trap, intentionally poisoning vials of what Britt desperately believes to be her life-saving medication. Cassius unwittingly played a role in this chain of custody, and Britt only narrowly escaped injecting herself with lethal poison because the police kicked down the door in Tortola just in time. But those vials still exist. They are physical evidence. They are still in play. Remember how the narrative specifically highlighted the saline found in the syringe in Britt's room? It was a brilliant breadcrumb, a massive clue proving that her terminal diagnosis was a complete, cruel fabrication manipulated by sadistic men. Britt still genuinely thinks she is dying. She still views those specific vials as her only tether to a prolonged life. Now, imagine those vials are logged into police evidence, or somehow find their way into the ongoing background investigation. We know Lucas is on the verge of discovering this medical truth, but information in this town has a funny way of falling into the wrong hands at the absolute worst possible time. What happens if the horrifying truth about their toxic nature is uncovered not by Britt, or Lucas, or Dante, but by Lulu? This brings me to a truly chilling, skin-crawling theory. If Lulu discovers that those specific vials are laced with a deadly, untraceable toxin, she is going to face a monumental, life-altering moral crossroads. Britt is sitting in a cell, desperately awaiting her medication, completely unaware that her cure is actually a death sentence. If Lulu knows the truth, the ethically correct, fundamentally human thing to do is to sound the alarm, expose the trap, and save Britt's life. But what if she does not? What if the overwhelming, paralyzing fear of losing Rocco to this second mother completely overrides Lulu's fundamental decency? I can vividly, terrifyingly picture a scenario where Lulu simply chooses silence. She wouldn't be pulling a trigger. She wouldn't be plunging a knife into anyone's back. She would just be looking the other way, staring at the wall, while a perceived threat conveniently eliminates itself. In Lulu's currently fractured, desperate state of mind, she might even rationalize it as fate taking its natural course. If Britt injects herself and dies from what everyone assumes is a tragic, inevitable medical complication, the problem is permanently solved. Rocco would mourn, yes, but eventually he would have absolutely no choice but to turn back to his real parents for comfort. It is a crime of omission, and it is incredibly, devastatingly dark. Now, I have to stop and argue with myself here for a second, because we need to look at the whole picture. Is Lulu really, truly capable of this level of darkness? We are talking about a legacy character, a woman who has historically fought for justice, who has endured unimaginable trauma herself, and who usually stands on the side of the angels. Could she truly let another human being, someone her own son fiercely loves, die a painful poisoned death just to secure her family dynamic? Part of me screams no. The heroic blood in her veins usually leans towards saving lives, not facilitating cold-blooded, calculating murder. It feels like a massive, irredeemable leap into the abyss for a character we have rooted for over the years. But then again, we have to acknowledge that grief, fear, and betrayal do terrible, unpredictable things to good people on this show. We have seen desperate mothers cross unfathomable lines to protect their children before. Lulu has already been pushed to the absolute psychological brink. She just recently found out she was sleeping with an imposter who manipulated her deeply. She is watching her son slip away, consumed by resentment and anger toward her. When a mother is backed into a corner and feels her family is being systematically stolen from her, the boundaries of right and wrong become incredibly blurred. The capacity for darkness is always there, just waiting for the right tragic trigger to set it off. And that leads me to an even more terrifying, audacious theory that I cannot get out of my head. What if Lulu doesn't just passively let it happen? What if the desperation consumes her so entirely, so completely, that she takes active, deliberate steps to ensure Britt never walks free again? If the legal system ultimately fails to lock Britt away, and Rocco's loyalty remains unbroken despite Dante's best efforts, Lulu might decide to take matters into her own trembling hands. I am talking about Lulu actively finding a way to poison Britt's food or drink, using the widespread knowledge of Britt's supposed failing health as the perfect, impenetrable cover story. Think about how easily, how seamlessly this could be framed. Everyone in town, including Britt herself, firmly believes she is suffering from a terminal degenerative disease. If Britt suddenly collapses in her cell or shortly after a potential release and suffers fatal complications, the immediate, unquestioned assumption would be that her illness finally claimed her life. No one would ever suspect a grieving, desperate, seemingly loving mother of orchestrating a calculated, cold-blooded poisoning. Lulu could execute this with chilling precision, convincing her own fractured mind that she is committing a necessary evil to save Rocco from a lifetime of danger and misplaced loyalty. If this storyline actually goes down this twisted path, it would fundamentally and permanently shatter the entire landscape of the show. Lulu would achieve her ultimate desperate goal. Britt would be gone forever, and Rocco would physically be back in her orbit, entirely dependent on her and Dante. But the ultimate cost would be her very soul. She would transform from a sympathetic victim of cruel circumstance into the very kind of monster she has spent her entire life fighting against. The irony is absolutely sickening. In her relentless quest to protect her family from the darkness of the criminal underworld, she would become the most dangerous, unforgivable criminal of all. It is a massive narrative tightrope, and I am endlessly fascinated to see if the writers actually have the nerve to walk it all the way to the end. Will Lulu manage to hold onto her humanity and her legacy, or will the terrifying prospect of losing her son push her to commit the ultimate unforgivable sin? We are currently watching a family slowly tear itself apart from the inside out, and the true, devastating tragedy is that the deepest, most fatal wounds are the ones they are about to inflict on each other. The question isn't just whether Britt will survive the heavy hand of the law, it's whether she can survive the desperate wrath of the mother of the boy who loves her.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.